Today, we're digging into one of the biggest secrets of the 20th century, the story of the very first Soviet atomic bomb. I mean, think about it. How did a country totally ravaged by war manage to build the most complicated weapon on the planet in record time? Well, the answer is an incredible mix of science, high-stakes politics, and some truly mind-blowing espionage. And it all starts with this number right here, 22 kilotons. That's the equivalent of 22,000 tons of TNT. It's just raw, city-destroying power unleashed in the middle of nowhere in Kazakhstan. And on that day, August 29th, 1949, that raw power became intensely political. In a single flash, the entire map of global power was redrawn. This was the moment the Cold War got real, really nuclear. So that brings us to the big question, right? American intelligence, they thought the Soviets were years, maybe even a full decade away from getting a bomb. So how on earth did they pull it off? Let's get into it. Okay, so first, let's talk about the shockwave that was felt all around the world. And to put it really simply, absolutely nobody saw this coming. So the Soviets, they test their bomb, codenamed First Lightning, in complete and total secrecy. But just 5 days later, a special U.S. Air Force plane flying off the coast of Siberia, it picks up something in the air. Something it was designed to find. Radioactive fallout. After weeks of top-secret analysis, the conclusion was undeniable. They had done it. And with that simple, chilling statement, the secret was out. President Truman's announcement told the world America wasn't alone anymore. But you know, the biggest shock wasn't just that the Soviets had built a bomb, it was what kind of bomb they'd built. And to really get their achievement, you have to understand the American design they were chasing. Yeah, because this wasn't just any old bomb. The blueprint the Soviets needed was for the Fat Man, that incredibly complex plutonium device that was used on Nagasaki. And this was not a weapon you could just kind of guess how to build. It was an astonishingly precise piece of engineering. So here's the key thing to understand. It's an implosion weapon. You don't just light a fuse and run. No, you have to perfectly, and I mean perfectly, crush a sphere of plutonium from all sides at the exact same microsecond to make it go critical. It's like trying to squeeze a water balloon into a perfect smaller sphere using 32 fists that all have to hit at the exact same instant. It sounds impossible. And when you look at the anatomy of this thing, you see just how complex it is. Right at the very center, you've got the plutonium pit. It's surrounded by a uranium tamper. Inside that is the Urchin initiator. That's the little trigger designed to flood the core with neutrons. But the real genius and the real challenge is the sphere of 32 explosive lenses wrapped around it all, each one needing its own perfectly timed detonator. And this entire sequence, it has to happen in literal microseconds. All 32 detonators fire at once, which creates that perfect, symmetrical shockwave that crushes the plutonium core to twice its normal density. At that exact instant, the initiator gets crushed, releasing a flood of neutrons that kicks off the chain reaction. If you're off by even the tiniest fraction of a second, you don't get a 21 kiloton blast. You get a dud, a fizzle. So you're the Soviets. You're facing this monumental challenge. How do you respond? Well, you respond with absolute, total, uncompromising urgency. You know, the American bombs dropped on Japan, that was a massive wake-up call for Joseph Stalin. He saw America's nuclear monopoly as a direct threat to his country's existence. So he ordered an all-out crash program with basically unlimited resources, and he put his ruthless secret police chief, Lavrenti Beria, in charge of it. Now, what's fascinating is that the Soviet scientists, they actually had their own, arguably more advanced designs they wanted to try. But Beria, he made a crucial call. He said there was no time for experiments, no time for innovation. The goal was speed and a guaranteed success. So he ordered them, forget your own designs, build an exact copy of the American weapon. But of course, to copy something, you need the blueprint. And that leads us to the secret ingredient. This is where the whole story just takes a wild turn, because it turns out the Soviet Union's greatest advantage wasn't in its own research labs. It was deep inside America's. The key, the absolute linchpin to their incredible speed, was espionage. And the most important spy of them all, the man who basically handed the Soviets the secrets to the bomb on a silver platter, was Klaus Fuchs, a brilliant physicist working at the very heart of the Los Alamos laboratory. And just look at what he gave them. It wasn't hints or clues. He gave them the entire playbook, a detailed blueprint with key dimensions, the physics behind implosion, the exact design of the Urchin initiator, the exact amount of plutonium they needed. He even gave them the secret metallurgical trick, using a gallium alloy to keep the plutonium core from deforming. He literally saved them years of trial and error. So with the American blueprint now in hand, the Soviet crash program went into overdrive. They had one simple overriding goal: build a perfect replica. And what they built was basically a twin, a tale of two bombs that were, for all intents and purposes, the same bomb. Both were incredibly complex implosion-type weapons built on the exact same scientific principles. I mean, just look at the comparison. It shows how identical they were. Same design principle, same plutonium core, and look at the blast yield. 21 kilotons for the American Fat Man, 22 for the Soviet Joe 1. It was so exact that witnesses said the Soviet device looked just like its American counterpart. It might be the most successful act of reverse engineering in all of history. So the success of Joe 1, it didn't just close a chapter in history. It kicked open the door to a terrifying new one. The world was now officially in a full-blown nuclear arms race. The American response was swift, and it was dramatic. Faced with a nuclear-armed adversary, President Truman made a truly fateful decision. He ordered his scientists to build an even more powerful weapon, the hydrogen bomb, a super bomb that would be hundreds of times more destructive. And this created a terrifying new logic for the world. It was the dawn of mutually assured destruction, or MAD. For the first time in history, both superpowers knew that a full-scale war meant total, complete annihilation for everybody. It created this tense, fragile peace held together only by the threat of global catastrophe. So we end up right back where we started. The story of the first Soviet bomb is this stark reminder that in a world of science and secrets, monopolies on power never last. And it leaves us with a really big question, one that's still relevant today. What happens when the secret to ultimate power just can't be kept?